Issue 58. We start out with Tails asking where he is, because as the last issue showed, his first question upon waking up in jail chained to a wall with Sonic was to remark in surprise about someone knowing he's there, rather than immediately asking where he is. After a robot tries to kidnap Tails, with Sonic failing to overly easily break free of the chains, getting himself dazed instead, we cut to Knuckles dealing with Rob the Hedge, who speaks in a really annoying way as I'm constantly wondering why he's talking like a medieval person in modern times. Maybe he's just really into the Middle Ages, but it's still irritatingly out of place. And I don't like how his eyes look so light green that they seem unnatural, like they're glowing or something. Fortunately, Knuckles gives him a good humiliation by taking his crossbow and getting him soaked in the water. I guess Robin Hedge is really paranoid if he instinctively assumed Knuckles was evil on sight. For some reason, being defeated in a fight so easily causes Robin to go immediately to asking Knuckles to join his crusade, even though he was just convinced he was bad news before. Also, I don't like the word crusade being a Sonic thing. Sonic explains why he was captured so easily. He and Tails had gone flying the biplane during a storm, which got the plane struck by lightning. At least Sonic lampshades how stupid his irresponsible decision to do that was. I also like how Sonic lampshades how Tails was somehow able to land the plane before they blacked out, when they should have blacked out the minute lightning hit the plane if the logic is that that's why they passed out. Why else would they passed out? This just goes to show you how much of a prodigy Tails is if he was able to land the plane in those extreme circumstances. So the reason they got captured so easily was that Sonic was so woozy from being passed out when he got arrested for being mistaken for Robbo the Hedge. Why didn't they just call him Robin Hedge? Robbo the Hedge is such a stupid name. Then the Echidna explains his own situation, revealing that the robot sent the rest of the Wandering Tribe to work, while only imprisoning him. The Echidna then earns my respect by saving Sonic for apparently no other reason than compassion, by provoking the robot into bringing him with him first, as I wonder why he was captured instead of put to work like everyone else. And Sonic brags that he had snagged some keys by his sneaker. Why would they make the keychain that big that could fit on his shoe? While Sonic gets to freeing himself, we cut to Robin explaining that all of his brave band were captured and roboticized by the High Sheriff. And as I explained, he's Robotnik's sub-boss. And as I expected, he's Robotnik's sub-boss in the land of Mercia. I'm really glad we got to see another one of Robotnik's sub-bosses. This was an intriguing concept. Although it is a little disheartening that Robotnik's defeat only freed one country, as the sub-bosses are still doing his work. Knuckles and Robin go up a tree and see some fallen trees, reluctantly chopped down by enslaved members of the tribe. I wonder why they weren't roboticized yet. Wouldn't they have a roboticizer on hand? Then Knuckles says that Aethera was right. I thought his name was Aetheri for a really long time, and this was the point where I realized that it was actually Aether. It's not really exactly a common name. We then cut to Sonic spin dashing past the robots, breaking free of his cell, and he finds Tails chained to some wood, being told that no sane animals visit Nottingham, so they must have been spies. Makes sense that he'd think that, but I don't like how he's chained to wood instead of metal, as if it's supposed to be believable that the England and Mobius would be arbitrarily less advanced in technology in the modern times just because it's England. It's insulting. And it doesn't make any sense. Also, no sane animals, which excludes humans for some reason. Apparently, this fierce robot is merely getting his robots to tickle Tails, when there's plenty of worse ways it could have been programmed to torture him. Somehow, Sonic gets the idea that this robot is General de Coulette, Antoine's father, even though he looks nothing like him, and doesn't seem to talk like he has a French accent either, and there's no reason he'd be made such a high rank as a sub-boss, and in England instead of France at that. So this makes no sense. Not to mention I'm now wondering why him and the other robots who look like roboticized Mobians haven't gotten their free will back from the Ultimate Annihilator like the other Robians. Well, maybe they were all too far away from the blast, and only affected the Robians close to it in Robototropolis. Also, de Coulette doesn't make any sense either. In French, D only has its E replaced with an apostrophe when it comes before a vowel, or an H. But C isn't a vowel. I guess the French language is different to that aspect on Mobius. I kind of like how Sonic speaks Spanish a little when jumping in to save Tails, as it fits his informal way of speaking to randomly do that on a whim, but it feels too out of place for me to enjoy it. And then he wastes time uselessly trying to talk some sense to the robot with no free will, instead of immediately spin dashing through Tails' chains and carrying him to safety. Tails unties the rope holding the wooden chandelier or something above him, and traps the robot as a result. I like that, Tails got to be useful. Then Sonic runs away in a hurry while wondering which way he should go, as the supposed General Colette said that they'll never make it past his maze of corridors. Then Robin gets knocked into the water again, this time by Marianne of the Lost Tribe, the same woman that Knuckles thought was related to Julie. So rather than getting herself captured, she actually managed to be just fine on her own. I guess this was foreshadowed by her saying she could take care of herself and flipping Knuckles though. After the two of them fall in love at first sight, making me wonder if the soul touch could somehow apply to non-echidnas as well, Knuckles says that he guesses her missing brothers are hiding because the tribe's been captured. Or they're with the tribe, you know, that made more sense. Knuckles then sees Sonic and Tails' terrible looking biplane, and Robin comes in handy as he points out that the trail leads to the High Sheriff's castle. After we very briefly cut to Sonic and Tails easily fighting a knight in the maze, so briefly that the whole cut to them feels pointless, we see Robin leading Knuckles into a chapel of Friar Buck. For fuck's sake, why is this even a reference in a Sonic comic? Christianity isn't supposed to exist in Sonic universe. Anyways, Robin reveals that we dug this secret passage when the High Sheriff began his reign of terror. And Knuckles remarks that they haven't used it much lately, as if he already knew about it for a long time, so that was bad dialogue. Then we see Sonic pushing up a square rock above him and climbing up to meet face to face with Robin. That was easy. Robin then reveals that it was Sonic's village where he sent his cousin Amy Rose to safety. So Amy Rose comes from England. That's pretty cool. It's a nice little detail, provides a bit of a backstory for her and explains an actual explanation for why she's got no relatives around. She was sent there from another country, and it makes sense for her to be English since Rose is an English word, so she must be English to have an English last name. It's confusing that he'd even know about Sonic's village to think to send Amy there though, or even where it is. But I thought, what did he think? Sadly, he gets cut off before he can clarify that sentence, so I guess we'll never know. Knuckles rushes him to try to rescue the echidna who got himself in huge trouble and was going to be made an example out of. And the story ends. Then we have a backup story though, which I had to go out of my way to find. King Acorn complains about how it's been over a week since the spirit Vix's noggins have driven from him and Dr. Quack is still constantly tending to him. Because of the x-ray making half his body look like a green skeleton, I thought it had recrystallized somehow at first glance. This looks pretty weird. This is not how x-rays work. I'm pretty sure you get cancer from this. Either that or his bones are still made of green crystal, which you think it would be too heavy for him to walk then. The doctor then explains that he needs to understand the process the king went through in order to treat any residual effects that might turn up. After it's revealed that the king lost his father thanks to Robotnik, the king asks a question that no actual monarch would ever realistically ask. Have you ever wondered why people chose to live under a monarchy? It does make sense, as they're choosing to go from one dictator to another just fine, purely because the king is a better person than Robotnik, when you'd think that they'd want democracy instead for the ultimate freedom. He then talks about how when he was young, he was brought to a place in the palace he'd never been in before, with a pool of gold and silver. Wow, that's a horrible waste of resources that could be put towards manufacturing and jewelry and stuff. Also, if it's liquefied gold and silver, it must be pretty hot. But somehow putting his hand into it doesn't disintegrate it. It also somehow allows him to figure out that the pool feels alive. His father had told him that this magical pool was the source of the king's power. Because just being a monarch related to a royal family isn't enough. He emerged covered with the metallic substance, and before it could harden, the liquid was poured into molds used to create his crown, as well as the Sword of Acorns. Wow, I'm really impressed they actually cared enough to establish a concrete backstory for why these magical artifacts were made. You never ever get that with magical MacGuffins. Normally they're just there, and they're always there. The king explains that he was unaware of it at the time, but he had bonded with the source of all, and explains that everyone began life as a speck of cosmic matter that flows from the source of all. No, we all began life as genetic material inside of our parents. I hope he's speaking in a metaphorical sense, talking about people's souls being cosmic matter, because literally speaking, it sounds like silly superstition. He then basically talks about the divine right to rule, saying that only a select few are provided guidance to lead the many. Well, duh, there can only be so many leaders. But I'm sure not all of the leaders are good leaders, so they weren't provided with guidance then. And the many enjoy the freedom to pursue their dreams and wishes. No. Throughout history, people have been basically forced to inherit the jobs of their fathers, working as farmers, or hunter-gatherers, or blacksmiths. It's only modern times that people have had the kind of freedom to pursue their own careers. And even then, why the hell is he talking about freedom as if it even exists in absolute monarchy? I mean, have you ever heard of Thailand? You're not even allowed to insult the king there. Either the Acorn Kingdom has a rich history of being inexplicably full of freedom for its people despite being an authoritarian dictatorship, or that it's one deluded royal family to think that its people actually have freedom. The king then explains that for the few in charge comes a curse with the blessing, and explains that the crown and sword of Acorn are linked to the source of all. So I guess they're magically getting their powers telekinetically from another magical artifact through quantum entanglement? This is definitely more convoluted than simply having the sword and crown themselves be magical. The king then explained that when Julian initiated his coup, he engaged the Swapats in battle with the sword. Odd, I never saw that in his memories when he was in the hospital. I remember him being captured by them effortlessly, never even seeing the sword. But now it's retconned that he had it on him the whole time. But the sword determined that the odds were overwhelming, despite being a magical sword whose exact powers weren't clearly defined yet, but are mentioned later to be really powerful. So I have a hard time believing its insecurity was legitimate. But what's done is done. The sword magically told the king to give the sword to be hidden by Jalila and tell Rosie, Sally, and Sonic to retreat, performing a heroic sacrifice letting himself face Eggman when I'm sure he could have easily just gone with his family just fine. It's not like they're going into a helicopter with only a very small amount of seats. He was who Eggman wanted, but I don't understand how the king's family and Sonic were allowed to just get away. I guess the king was serving as a distraction, and he couldn't just chase after both of them at the same time. But he had his Swapats with him. They could have sent some Swapats after Rosie. Without its mate, the crown faded from sight, merging with the king. So that's why he didn't have the crown. I never knew the crown and sword were linked that much. But seriously, he had both the Sword of Acorns and the crown, and he still couldn't beat Eggman. Then the king says that now that he's back to normal, I realize matters can't continue as they were before, even if my daughter wishes it so. What is he talking about? A king who willingly wanted to give his subjects democracy? This is the most pure good Gary stupefied king ever. I'm sorry I like this guy, but he's the most unrealistic portrayal of an absolute monarch I've ever seen. No king would ever do this. And in the very next issue, he talks about being blindly traditional, blindly loyal to tradition. So why is he saying, I realize matters can't continue as they were before, and then worshipping tradition in the very next issue? This story was written by Ken Penders, and introduces Robin Hedge, as I'm going to call him, a character who is nails on chalkboard to me because his out-of-place speech and even concept is really irritatingly out of place in Sonic. He's in the modern times. This would be fine if he was in another dimension, he was another dimension version of Sonic, or if he was, like, met through time travel and he really was in the Middle Ages. Why is he talking like this? And why the hell is this not even lampshaded? No one even really comments on how stupidly he talks just for the sake of being polite. And it's very distracting. I liked him being related to Amy, sending her to Knothole somehow, and falling for a Echidna Girl in the Lost Tribe though. It's like they're bridging the two stories that way. I also don't understand why he helped Knuckles so quickly, and the first thing he did was attack about a Paranoia. It's arbitrary, just like everything else about him. Speaking out of place, so is the land of Mercia. Again, it's not like we travel back in time. Tails being chained to wood and the whole medieval theme in general. Again, I know it's like Robin Hood England, but it's also modern times, with advanced technology. This medieval Camelot feels very out of place. At least Sonic and the Black Knight justified it with Sonic being in another dimension. And a major robot sub-boss turning out to be Antoine's father seems very arbitrary and ridiculous. Even more ridiculous than Sonic getting to escape because the key was able to fit over his shoe. Why would Antoine's father be made a sub-boss and not just a regular robot? And more importantly, why did Sonic recognize him? And when Tails didn't? I did like how the Echidna guy was nice enough to help Sonic escape for no reason, but other than that, the story was just tedious and confusing and pretty disappointing. And the backup story was written by Penders as well as a new writer named Clayton Emery. I like how they cared enough to elaborate on the sword and crown of acorns, even if making these two things by themselves magical instead of connected to a source of all would have made more sense. I really like how it basically filled in the plot holes with the king being defeated, or at least tried to anyways. I know why the crown vanished now, but I still can't believe that despite having a magical sword, he still wasn't able to win. What the hell are those things good for if they can't save the king from this kind of situation? And again, I don't see why any absolute monarch would question absolute monarchy. The system that personally benefits him and his entire family. He's the most righteous king on the face of the planet was the point of shattering Willie's suspension of disbelief. Next up is Knuckles Comic Issue 12.